Begin today the Gemara, the last few words, and Daf Zayin Amud Beis. No, we're on the bottom line. So we're continuing. The Gemara discusses the halachas of the Sheva Brachas, and right here the Gemara brings what is the actual nusach of the Sheva Brachas. Daf Zayin Amud Beis, yeah? My mevarech, like the Gemara. So what is the nusach of the brachas of the Sheva Brachas? So actually, if you look at the Sheva Brachas, there are only 6 brachas. The reason why we refer to it as Sheva Brachas is because if you add Beirei Pri Hagafen, that's the 7th bracha. But the Gemara here only brings 6 brachas. So Amar Rav Yudah said as follows. He starts with Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Sha'akol Bara L'Chvaydei. It's the first bracha. Now why do we say the bracha Sha'akol Bara L'Chvaydei? That everything was created for the Eibish's honor. So Rashi explains that this is actually not specifically related to the simcha of a chasana and a kala. This is b'chlal, when you have many yidden that are gathering together, so you start off with the Eibish's honor and you say Sha'akol Bara L'Chvaydei. That's the first bracha. The next bracha is V'yayitzer Adam. Also begins with Baruch Atah Hashem, and you say Yayitzer Adam. This is speaking about the Eibishter creating Adam Rishon. Again, Rashi explains that this is before you come to the simcha of Chasna and Kala. Chasna and Kala is not just creating Adam Rishon, it's creating a Zachar and a Keva, a Chasan and a Kala. So this Yayitzer Adam is thanking the Eibishter for creating Adam Rishon himself. And then the third bracha, again you begin with Baruch Atah Hashem, and you say Asher Yatzar Asa Adam B'Tzalmai. The Eibishter created a person in his image, B'Tzelem D'Mustav Nisai, in the image that he was constructed in. V'Hisken Lo Mimeno Binyan Adayat. So here it speaks about the fact that from the body of Adam Arishain, the Eibishter Hisken Lo, the Eibishter prepared for him also the Nekeva from his body. So this is the bracha. This is the first bracha where we begin speaking about the source of the simcha of the chasna of chasna v'kala. Then you conclude Baruch Atah Hashem Yotzer Ha'adam. So Rashi explains an interesting thing, that here in these 3 brachas, each one of these brachas begin with Baruch Atah Hashem, right? When it comes to the next bracha, Sois Tasis, and the next bracha Samach de Samach, they do not begin with Baruch Atah Hashem. Did you ever wonder why? Why do the first 3 begin with Baruch Atah Hashem and the next 2 don't? So Rashi explains, because there's a rule, and the Gemara says this in brachas, that a bracha hasmucha lechaverta, when you say 2 brachas consecutively, you don't say Baruch Atah Hashem for the second bracha. The Baruch Atah Hashem for the first bracha goes in the next bracha as well. You can see this in benching. You begin the first bracha with Baruch Atah Hashem, the second bracha just starts with Noida Lecha. The third bracha starts with Rachem. The same in Shmei Nesra. You start the first bracha with Baruch Atah Hashem, the next bracha begins with Ata Gibar. It doesn't begin with Baruch Atah Hashem. So therefore Rashi says as follows: Sha'akol Bara L'Chvaydei and Yotzer Adam are 2 brachas, even though they're said one after the other, they really have nothing to do with each other. Baruch Atah Hashem Sha'akol Bara L'Chvaydei is a bracha about the Eibishter's glory. Yotzer Adam is about creation of man. They're not really related to one another. And then the third bracha, where the Eibishter creates the Zachar and the Nekeva, that's a new theme. These are 3 brachas of 3 separate themes. And therefore, each one gets its own Baruch Atah Hashem. It's not a continuation. Comes to the 4th bracha, Sois Tasis, this is a continuation, the bracha that we're saying in connection to the Chasana here. So since it's a continuation to the previous bracha, and Samach to Samach is also a continuation to the previous bracha, so therefore we don't say a separate Baruch Atah Hashem. So what's the, correct. What's the 4th bracha? Sois Tasis. So this is actually a bracha related to the Chasana, but this is a bracha that we say for Yerushalayim. Because as we know that every time there's a simcha, you have to remember Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash, and that's what this bracha is about. Sois Tasis v'sagal akara, that the akara, the barren one, should be joyous, and this refers to Yerushalayim. The kibbutz banel l'seicha b'simcha, when you gather its children inside of it with joy, when the Eibishter will rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. Baruch Atah Hashem esameach tziyaim b'vaneha. The 5th bracha, Samach to Samach Rei Ma'ahuvim. So this comes back to the Chasan and Kala, that the Rei Ma'ahuvim, the friends, the Chasan and Kala, should be joyous with one another. Kisamecha Chayitzircha Began Eden Mikedem. Just as if you brought joy to the ones that you created, to Adam and Chava in Gan Eden Mikedem. Baruch Atah Hashem Esameach Chasan v'Chala. So there's many Maimarim and Chassidus on this bracha, Samach to Samach Rei Ma'ahuvim. So just one point that it says in the Maimonim, there's a whole long hemshach from the Rebbe Rashab, Samach to Samach. It's only about 100 pages, you can take a look there. So Kapanim, one of the Nekudas that it says there is that Rei Ma'ahuvim, besides referring to the Chasna and Kala Kipshuta, he also refers to the Rei Ma'ahuvim in Seder Shtalshlus, which is Chachma and Bina, which in the Lashon of Zayir is called Trein Rein Deloi Misparshin, friends that never depart. And what the pasuk here is saying is that when a yid comes down into this world and he's getting married, he's going to have children and so on, so this brings a greater simcha to Chachma and Bina, or to all the Seder Shtalshus you draw from a higher place. when a Yid comes down to this world and he gets married, he goes into the world, he mekayim mitzvahs, begashmias, that draws down a greater simcha to the Re'im Ma'ahuvim. That's one of the explanations in the Maimorim. Okay, the final bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech ha'olam. So this is the bracha achrita, as it's known. Asher bara sasim v'simcha, chasam v'kala, gila rina, ditza v'chedva, ava v'achva, shalom v'reis. Meheira Hashem Elokeinu yishama bar Yehuda b'chutz Yisraelim, kol sasim v'kol simcha, kol chasam v'kol chala, kol metzalas chasanim v'chapasim, nara mishleg niginasam, baruch atah Hashem v'sameach chasan im hakala. So just to point out, I'm not going to go through the whole bracha now in detail, but to point out a few things about this bracha. First of all, this bracha does begin with the baruch atah Hashem, even though it's continuing the same theme of speaking about the simcha of the chassan and kala. Why does it start with the baruch atah Hashem? So Rashi says, because we'll see soon in the Gemara, at least according to one opinion, when you don't have a panim chadashais by the Sheva brachas later on after the chasana and then other days, so even though you don't say all 7 brachas, but this bracha you do say. So because this bracha is said separately, so it gets its own baruch atah Hashem. Another point about this bracha which Rashi points out is that the conclusion of the bracha is on one hand similar to the conclusion in the 4th bracha before, or the 5th bracha that is before, previous bracha, but on the other hand it's not the same. Before the lashon was Mesameach Chasan Vichala. Here the conclusion of the bracha is Mesameach Chasan Imakala. What's the difference? So Rashi explains that the previous bracha, when it says Mesameach Chasan V'Chala, it's speaking about the Chasan and the Kala that Hashem created. It's not speaking necessarily about the marriage of the Chasan and Kala. It's speaking about the fact that Hashem created Adam, and then Hiskeloi Mimenu Binyan Adayad, He created Chava, the Nekeva as well, and that Hashem provides the Chasan and the Kala for what they need for their entire life. And therefore it's saying Chasan V'Chala, but not the Chasan and the Kala necessarily in their union, in their marriage. Then in the last bracha, though, it speaks about the Chasan v'Simcha, the Chasan and the Kala. So here it says Mesameach Chasan ima Kala, speaking about the Simcha of the Chasan with the Kala at the time of their marriage. That's Rashi's pshat. The Alter Rebbe in Torah Eretz asks this question as well, and there the Alter Rebbe answers that in the first bracha when it says Chasan v'Kala, it's speaking about the Simcha of Chasan and Kala b'zman hazeh. B'zman hazeh, Chasan is makabel from the Kala that is makabel from the Chasan. The Chasan is higher, the Chasan is Zah, and the Kala is Malchus, and the Seder is that the Nekeva is Makabel from the Zachar. That's the Seder B'zman Hazeh. When Mashiach comes, the Sheirish of who the Kala is, which is the Nekeva, will be higher. Based on the Pasuk where it says, Nekeva Teseviv Gever La'asad Lavi, we'll see the Maila of the Nekeva that's even higher than the Zachar. And that's what we're hinting to in the last bracha, which speaks about La'asad Lavi, Meheira Hashem Elokeinu Yishama Bar Yehuda. When Mashiach comes, and we say, Mesameach Chasan Makala. Where does the Chasan get his simcha from? From the Kala. That refers to the revelation that will be La'asad Lavi. Another thing that Alter Rebbe points out regarding the last bracha here, which goes on La'asad Lavi, it says Kol Chasan v'Kol Kala. What does it say? Kol Kala. The Alter Rebbe there says an interesting thing, that by a Chasan, or by the Kiddushin really, so the Chasan says Harei Mekadesh Asli and gives the ring to his wife, and the Kala shtika, she's quiet. There's no Kol Kala. It's only a Kol Chasan. La'asad Lavi, there'll be Kol Kala as well. Because the Kala will be elevated and her source of who she is will be revealed, so then there'll be not only Kol Chasan, but there'll be Kol Kala as well. That's what the pasuk says.
It's also Kodesh Baruch Hu in Am Yisrael.
Yeah, that's also Mechalal Chasan Kala, as Merama said that. Okay, let's continue the Gemara. Levi ikla lebei Rebbe bihilule the Rab Shimon berei. So Levi came to the chasna that Rebbe made for Rab Shimon his son. Barech Chamesh, so he only said 5 of these brachas. So which bracha did he skip? As we'll see in the Gemara here, he skipped the bracha of Yetzer Adam, the second bracha. Then Rav Asi, Ikla Lebei, Rav Ashi Behilule Demar Berei, Rav Asi went to the chasna of Rav Ashi by Mar, his son, and Baruch Shis, he said 6 brachas. In other words, he did say all of the brachas, and he included the bracha of Yetzer Adam. So the argument over here is, do we make this special bracha to thank the Eibishter for creating Adam Rishon? First, we would make a bracha for creating Adam Rishon, and then the bracha for creating Adam and Chava. That's the next bracha. Hisken Lo Mimenu Binyan Adayad. So, does it deserve a separate bracha? These two different creations. So the Gemara explains. Shall we say that the argument here is as follows? So the Rebbe says that there was really only one creation here. Adam and Chava were originally created together. I'll explain in a moment. Umar Savar Shtei Yitziris Avoi. And the other opinion is, no, there were two different creations and they deserve two different brachas. So Rashi explains that the source of what the Gemara is saying here, we learned this a few times in other places, there's a machlekes in the Gemara, how were Adam and Chava created? One opinion is, Adam and Chava were created, there were two bodies that were created, a Zachar and a Keva, and the bodies were attached. And then the Eibishter came and separated them. But it was really just one creation. Right in the beginning, there was created a full Zachar and a Keva. So it was one B'riyah. Then there's another opinion in the Gemara that no, Adam and Chava, Adam was created alone. And then the Eibishter took from a certain side or protrusion from the body of Adam, and he built from that a new body of the Nekeva, of Chava. So really that's a totally separate creation. So that's the question over here. Do we say two separate brachas? If you say that they were created once all together, so then there's no reason to say a separate bracha for Yetzer Adam, for the creation of man, and then the creation of Adam and Chava, of the Nekeva as well. But if you say that there were two separate creations, first Adam alone, and then the Eibishter built a whole new body for the Nekeva, so then it deserves a separate bracha. That's what it seems like the machlekes here is. So the Gemara says not necessarily. Like, Kulam, everybody agrees, Chadi Yitzira Avoy. They were all created as one. The Zachar and the Nekeva, they were created together. Now, what's the argument whether you should say a separate bracha for Yetzer Adam or not? Sorry. Mar Savar Basar Machshava Zlinan. So one opinion is we follow the Eibishter's Machshava. What was the Eibishter's Machshava? To create two. To create a Zachar and a Nekeva. So because the Machshava of the Eibishter was that there should be a Zachar and a Nekeva, so therefore it's two separate creations. And therefore, we say first a bracha of creating man, and then a bracha for creating the nekeva, because that was Hashem's machshava. There should be a zachar and a nekeva. But Amar Savar Basamaisa Zlina. The other opinion, though, is Rebbe, which skipped the bracha of Yetzer Adam. He goes by the maisa of what actually happened. B'payil, when the Eibishter created them, even though the machshava was to create them separately, but b'payil, the Eibishter created them together and then separated their bodies. So therefore, we don't say a separate bracha for the creation of man alone. And the Gemara brings a source of this. Ki Hada Rav Yehuda Rami. Rav Yehuda asked the question. Ksiv, in one pasuk it says, "Vayivra lekim es Adam b'tzalmai," that Hashem created Adam in His image. Or Ksiv, in another pasuk it says, "Zachar unekeva b'ram," that they were created a Zachar and a Nekeva separately. So what does this mean? Ha keitzad. In the beginning, Hashem's idea was that He's going to create separately a Zachar and separately a Nekeva. But in the end, in actuality, He created the Zachar and the Nekeva. They were connected to one another. He created them as one. The Gemara brings another story of a chasana. Rav Ashi ikla lebeit Rav Kahana. He was joining the simcha of a chasana by Rav Kahana. Yain Makama, on the first day by the chasana itself, Baruch Kulu. He said all the Sheva brachas. And the following days, so if there was someone new that did not attend earlier, so he said all the brachas as well. But if not, he said, Afushi Simcha Ba'almahu, we're just extending the original celebration of the chasana. There's no reason for a new joy of a new face of a new celebration here. So therefore, Mevarech Shasimcha B'maynai, in the benching by the Zimun, he added the words Shasimcha B'maynai, which refers to the Eibishter. There's the Simcha by the Eibishter is placed. Ma'oin is one of the heavens that there are in the 7 Rekiim. And Vashabara, and also he said Ashabara, the last bracha of the Sheva brachas. Just that bracha he said. And the Gemara continues and says another halacha here. Mishiva va'at shloishim, from after the 7 days of the Sheva brachas until 30 days after the chasana. So then, could you say Sheva brachas then as well if you're making a meal for the chasana and kala? So the Gemara says it depends. Or actually, from Shiva until Shloshim, the Gemara says as follows: Bein amaluhu machmas yilula. Whether he's inviting guests for a meal for the chasana and kala, and he tells them that I'm inviting you in honor of the celebration of their marriage. Or bein lo yamalu machmas yilula. Or he's just having a breakfast, a lunch, or a dinner, or whatever, and he's not telling them this is specifically related to the simcha of their marriage. When you bench for the chasna and kala within 30 days, you still say shasimcha b'maynai. Mikan ve'eleich, after 30 days, so then, if you're inviting people for a meal with the chasna and kala, and you tell them it's especially in connection to the celebration of their chasna, then mevarach shasimcha b'maynai. So you add the word shasimcha b'maynai. But if you're not inviting them specifically to celebrate their marriage, the chasna, so then you don't add the word shasimcha b'maynai. So the Gemara now wants to know, until when is this? After 30 days. So if you're making a special simcha for the chasana, so up until what point do you add shasimcha b'maynai? V'chiyam alei machmas yilula. If you're inviting them for the chasana, sa'ademus, until how long does this celebration continue? Rav Papi, that is, Mishmei derave at treisa yarchishata, for 12 months. That's how long you can say shasimcha b'maynai.
12 months.
And from before the chasana, from what point could you begin saying shasimcha b'maynai? If we see over here that you can say shasimcha b'maynai even after the chasana and even after the sheva brachas as well, so even from before the chasana, they're already preparing and they're beginning the joy of the chasana. So from when do you start saying shasimcha b'maynai? Rav Papa says michiramu sari ba'sinta. When you place the barley into the water, so that two pshatim in Rashi, one pshat is when they're preparing the beer that they're going to be serving at the wedding. So when they're starting to prepare the ingredients that's needed for the beer, that already brings in the joy for the chasana, so you can begin saying shasimcha b'maynai. Another pshat in Rashi is that this was some kind of a thing they would do for good luck. It would show in the mazel, just like this beer that they put into the water and it grows, and so too, this is a siman for the chasna and kala that they should that they should multiply and have children. Beer, or actually barley. To make the beer. That's the first pshat.
What's the connection between Panu Chadashis and saying
it brings a new simcha. Panu Chadashis is Maisif, a new simcha. A person that did not.
for the Chassan and Kala.
Again?
It's their simcha.
True, but it's the obligation of the Mesubim, of the people, the guests that are invited, that are joining the simcha. So because they're experiencing the simcha of the Chassan and Kala, so it's the Mesubim that have to say the bracha, the Sheva brachas for the Chassan and Kala. Who says the Sheva brachas? The Chassan and Kala themselves? No, the Chassan doesn't say the Sheva brachas. The people that are joining the meal, they that have the zuchus to join this tremendous simcha of the marriage of a chassan and kala, so they have an obligation to bench the chassan and kala with these sheva brachas. So if there's a person that already was there by a previous meal and he already benched the chassan and kala, so he doesn't have to, it's not such a big simcha for him. But if it's a person that comes a new panam chadashis, so he has the obligation to bench the chassan and kala for this great simcha. That's the pshat. Fragt the Gemara, is this the day that you could only start from when you begin preparing the food or the beer for the chasana? But is this true? Rav Papa, it says about Rav Papa that what happened? He was preparing the chasana for his son Abba Mar, and Ubarich Mishas Edison. From the time of the Edison, he already began saying Shasimcha b'maynai. We already learned before that from the Edison to Nisuin could be a year time, and the whole year we're saying Shasimcha b'maynai. So the Gemara answers, Rav Papa is different. He already had the wedding, the food, and everything he needed for the chasna prepared, and therefore he was already so content about the preparations that are done and ready to go. So he was saying Shasimcha b'maynai from the time of the Kiddushin. Yeah, maybe it means he had already all the bills paid off. He had it all taken care of already. All the caterer hired, the flowers, the pictures, everything was taken care of already. So he was already saying Shasimcha b'maynai. He was the Baal Simcha, not the Baal Chayv. Yeah, the first freezer. Okay. Gemara brings on another story. Ravine Asekle Lebrei Be Rav Chavive. Ravine was preparing the chasana for his son, got married to the daughter of Rav Chavive, Ubarach Mishas Edison. And he also said Shasimcha b'maynai from the time of the Edison. And he said, Amar Kimli Begavayu. I know them, these are my mechatanim, I know the family, I know for sure they're not going to retract from this marriage. And therefore he was so guaranteed they're going to get married, so he was already saying it. But what happened? Lo yistaya milsa. But it didn't end up happening. V'hadri bihu, and they did retract from the marriage. So the Gemara basically is bringing this to show you that you should not be saying shasimcha b'maynai until the actual chasana itself, or at least close enough, as the Gemara said, when you already have the beer that's beginning to be prepared.
What happened with the sukkah?
Rav Tachlife bar Marave ikla lebavel. Rav Tachlife from Eretz Yisrael, Marav is always in the west, which refers to Eretz Yisrael, so he came down to Bavel. So Baruch Shis Harichta, he said these 6 brachas, again, the Sheva brachas are really 6 brachas along with Beir Priya Gafen, and he said a much longer nusach. He added more to the bracha than what we had here before. So, but the Gemara says, we don't follow what he did, we do the nusach of the brachas as we said it before. Rav Chavive ikla lebei muhula. Rav Chavive joined the bris milah, the meal by a bris milah, and by the benching barech shasimcha b'maynai. When he said the zimun by the benching, he added the words shasimcha b'maynai like a chasana. But the Gemara says we don't follow what he did. Why? Mishum detridi, because the attendance of the simcha by a bris, there's a certain distress, this leitzara leyanuka, because of the pain of the child, of this mitzvah. So therefore we don't add shasimcha b'mayna. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav. Rav Nachman said in the name of Rav the following halacha: Chasanim min minyan. The chasan could be counted as part of the minyan. We said before we need a minyan. The Gemara is soon going to explain exactly what this minyan we're speaking about is, but the chasan is counted part of the minyan. But ve'ein avelim min minyan. Avelim are not counted part of the minyan. Okay, what this is relevant for, what we need the minyan for, we'll see in a moment in the Gemara. But first, let's see. The Gemara will explain. But first, the Gemara asks a contradiction. No, nothing to do with a chasana. Let's see. Meisvei, so the Gemara asks, chasanim va'avelim min minyan. It says in the Braise that the chasanim and the avelim could be counted as part of the minyan. So this is not like what Rav said. So the Gemara says, Masnita karamis alei de Rav. You're asking a contradiction of a Braise on what Rav said. Rav tanahu upolik. Rav himself is a Tana, and he can argue what it says in the Braise. This is something the Gemara says many times, even though sometimes the Gemara tries to answer a contradiction between Rav and a Mishnah or a Braise. But Rav was a student of Rebbe, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, the one that was Masad at all the Mishnayos. He was sort of in that generation between the Tanaim and Amoraim. So therefore many times the Gemara says, Rav is a Tana, and he can argue on a Braise. But here the Gemara now brings another version of this. Itmar, we learned, Amar Rav Yitzchak, Amar Rav Yechanan, that Rabbi Yechanan is the one that said this. Chasanim min minyan, a chasan can be counted as part of the minyan. Ve'ein avelim min minyan, an aval is not counted as part of the minyan. And on this the question was asked. Meisvei in the Braise it says chasanim ve'avelim min minyan. The chasan and avelim could both be counted as part of the minyan. So the Gemara answers, Ki tanyahi, when it says in the Braise that an aval could be counted as part of the minyan, bebirchas hamazon. This is speaking about when it comes to benching, where you're having a minyan for the zimun, or Rashi actually says, even to combine three, to say the zimun of Rabbi Yisrael Mevel and Benchen, you can include a aval for the zimun by Birchas Hamazon. That's what it was speaking about. So in other words, as Rashi says, the point is that the aval is chayv in all mitzvahs, so therefore he's counted as part of the Birchas Hamazon. Ki ka'amar Rabbi Yechanan, when Rabbi Yechanan said that you don't count the aval as part of the minyan, b'shura. This refers to the line that's made after the burial. So in the Beis HaKvaris, you line up and there's two lines and the aval walks in between and they're menachem the aval. So you have to have a minyan in that line. So the aval himself is not counted part of that minyan.
That's the only situation where it's not counted.
So right. So over here the aval is not counted. So, but on this the Gemara asks, but there's another place where we find Rabbi Yechanan, the statement of Rabbi Yechanan, and it says a bit different. So we had in another place that Rabbi Yitzchak says in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Mevarchim birchas chasanim ba'asara, the bracha of chasanim, which is the Sheva brachas, you say it with 10 people, the chasanim in a minyan, and the chasan himself can be counted as the one of the 10 that you need for the Sheva brachas. Then he said, birchas avelim ba'asara. There's a birchas avelim, which the Gemara will quote soon. There's a special bracha that you say by avelim as well. And that should be said in the presence of 10 people. And the aim, avelim in a minyan. And the avelim are not part of the minyan. So we see here in this version of what Rabbi Yechanan said that we're talking about a bracha by the avelim. So therefore the Gemara says, bracha b'shura mi'ike. Before we said Rabbi Yechanan was talking about this line for people that's line up to give the nichem avelim, but by this shura, there's no bracha, there's no, so that it can't be speaking about that. So says the Gemara, Ella, rather, kikam Rabbi Yechanan berachva. What Rabbi Yechanan was saying was, and this was the minig in those times, that the oval, after they came out of the Beis HaKvaris, there was like an open place out in the street, and the first meal that the oval would eat would be over there out in the street. They would give him to eat, and they would say a special bracha for the oval, which the Gemara is going to say soon what that bracha is. So over there, the oval is not part of the minyan. You have to have a minyan for that bracha, and the oval can't be part of the minyan. But by the Sheva brachas, the chasan can be part of the minyan. That's what the Rabbi Yechanan meant. But the Gemara now brings yet a third version of what Rabbi Yechanan said, and here we'll see that this is also not the pshat. So here, it was elaborated more exactly what Rabbi Yechanan said. He said as follows: all 7 days of the Sheva brachas, so you say the birchas chasanim, and you have to have a minyan, v'chasanim in a minyan, and the chasan himself is part of the minyan. Birchas avelim ba'asara kol shiva, and then you have the birchas avelim, which is also with 10 people, and it's also a bracha that said all 7 days, ve'ein avelim in a minyan, and the avelim is not part of the minyan. So the Gemara's question is, birchas rachva kol shiva mi'ike. The bracha that you say for Oval over there, as I mentioned, so it was said when the Avelim come to the outside of the cemetery and the first meal that they have, and they say a special bracha, that's only that one day, that first time. But you don't have this all 7 days. So the Gemara answers a similar thing to the halacha as by the Shabbat brachas, mishkachas la, so too by the Avelim, you also have this bepanim chadashes. If there's a new person that did not attend the Levaya and wasn't there on the first day of the Nichem Avelim, if he comes on the second, third, or fourth, or till the 7th day, there is a birchas Avelim that he says. Okay, we'll see in a moment here. Right now the Gemara brings what the birchas Avelim is. Kihad Rav Chia bar Abba. The Gemara here brings a story that happened with Rav Chia bar Abba. Mikri baneh de Reish Lakish Hava. See, he was the one that taught, according to one version, he taught Chumash for the children of Reish Lakish. Others say, Masni berei de Reish Lakish Hava. He taught Mishnayos to the children of Reish Lakish. Shachiv le Yenuka. So he had a child that passed away. So the first day, Reish Lakish did not go to be Menachem Avolim. But Lamacha the next day, Dabre le Rabbi Yehuda bar Nachmani mit Turgamane. So Reish Lakish took along with him Yehuda bar Nachmani, which was his interpreter, and he went Amalei. So he went to be Menachem Avel, Rav Chia bar Abba, and Amalei he said to his interpreter, Kum eime milse kol kavel Yenuka. Say something about this that happened there, about this child that passed away. Pasach v'amar. So he began and said as follows: Vayar Hashem, and the Eibishter saw, Vayinotz, and the Eibishter got offended, so to speak, and Mikaz Banov u'Bnoisav, and because of the anger that the Eibishter lets out on the children and the sons and the daughters. And what this pasuk means is as follows: Doir she'avis menatzim lakadosh baruch hu, a generation where the people, the fathers, offend the Eibishter, koyes al b'neim. So then the anger of the Eibishter is let out on the children, val b'neiseim, on the daughters, u'meisim keshem ketanim, and they pass away when they're young. So he was sort of describing what happened over here. That seems very strange that he's saying this. He's coming to be Menachem Avel, and he's basically saying to the father that the child passed away because of the Avedis of the father. The Gemara is going to ask this question in a second. There are others that say Bocher Hava, that the child of Rav Chia bar Abba passed away. It wasn't a child, but he was actually a Bocher. And therefore, this Meturgeman, so he said as follows. He quoted the pasuk where it says, Al Kain al Bachurov la Yismach Hashem, because of the Bachrim, the Eibishter is not happy. Ves Yisayma, Ves Almanoisav Leirachem, the Eibishter has no mercy. Kikule Chonaf, O Meira, they do bad. V'chol Pet Doivin Avala, they speak with their mouth impure things. B'chol Zois Leishav Apoy, V'oid Yodei Netuya, the Eibishter's hand is still stretched out. Mai V'oid Yodei Netuya, what does this mean, V'oid Yodei Netuya? Amar Rav Chanan Barav, Hakoil Yoidin, Kala Lama Nichnasa L'chuppah. Everybody knows why a Kala is getting married. Ella, but it's not something you don't have to spell out clearly with your mouth what it is, what that the relation of the Chassan and the Kala. Ella, Kala Menavel Piv Umoitzi Dvar Navala Mipiv. A person that speaks uncleanly with his mouth. So then, Afila Nechtem Le Gzar Dina Shel Shivim Shana. Even if the Eibishter has sealed the Gzar Din, a good L'toiva, something that's good, 70 years, Nepach Olav L'ra. The Eibishter will transform it that it should be something with the Chas v'Shalom bad that will happen to him. Rashi says, the drasha is from this word, V'oid Yodin Netuya. Instead of reading it V'oid, it's read Va'ed. Va'ed means forever. That goes on the whole lifespan of a person, which is 70 years. So even if there was a Gzeira L'toiva, that the person deserved good for his whole life, but if he speaks impurely with his mouth, the Eibishter, it turns over this Gzar Din L'ra on him. Okay, so now the Gemara asks the question, this is very strange. He's coming to be Menachem Avel and he's quoting all of these psukim, saying all these things. Asil Nachumi, he's coming to console the father, and Suri Kamitzarele, and he's giving him all this pain by saying that it's all the fault of the father.
What's
so the fact that his child or his son passed away. That's what it seems like he's saying here. So the Gemara answers, Hachi Kamale, this is what he meant to say to him. Choshiv at la tfusi adora. That you are so prominent and so great that the Avedis of the generation is something that affects you, that your child passes away. So as Rashi here brings, that we find that when there's a Avedis of the people in the generation, who's the one that gets punished for this? As a kapara for the whole generation, the greatest, it's Tzadikim. And their passing away is a kapara for the rest of the generation. So what he was saying is, not that it's your Avedis, because the Avedis of the people in the generation, you are so great, and therefore you're the one that Hashem punished. Amalei, the Gemara now continues the story over there, what happened. So Reish Lakish told to his Meturgaman, Kum Eime Milsa Keneged Shvacha Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now say something for the praise of the Eibishter. Pasach Vama, so began and said the following bracha. Hakei la gadol beroiv godle adav chazuk beroiv neira isav mechayim mesim b'mamara isa gedolis adi chekev v'neflois adi misbar baruch atah Hashem mechayim mesim. So this is a bracha said for the shvach of the Eibishter. Amalei, Reish Lakish says to his Meturgaman. So this is here, the Gemara is bringing this because this is the source of what we said before. In those times, when you came to be Menachem Avol, they said all these brachas. So the next bracha he said, Kum eim milsa keneged avelim. Get up and say a bracha for the avelim. Pasach v'amar, he got up and said the following bracha. Acheinu am yugoyim, am dukoyin, our brothers which are exhausted and are mourning, be'evel azeh, with this avelis here, tnu levavchem lachker zois. Think about this, what happened there. Zoisi emedes la, this is something, people passing away, something that's from the beginning of creation. Nisivu mishesh ismei breishes, this is a pathway from the beginning of the times. Rabim Shasu, many have drank from this. Rabim Yishtu, many will drink from this. Kimishter Ishainim Kach Mishtach Reinim, just like your earlier generations have drank from this, so too the later ones will. Acheinu Bal Nechamis Yenachem Eschem Baruch Menachem Avelim. So now the Gemara adds regarding this bracha we just said, Amar Abaye Rabim Shasu Leime. This that you're saying that many have drank from this, that's something you should say. And the point of what you're saying to the Avelim is that this is something that's part of the nature of creation. Don't cry too much because this is how the Eibusha created the world. But Rabim Yishtu, that many will drink from this in the future, Loi Leime, that's not something you should open your mouth and say. Mishter Ishainim Leime. The fact that others before have drank from this and have been mourning, that you say. But mishtach reinim leilema, there's no reason to open your mouth and say anything that will happen in the future. There's never a reason to open up your mouth for what the Satan could do in the future. Amar Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef says, Micro, what's the source for this? Because there's a pasuk in the Shaya where it says, that he says, he compares the Yidden that were acting like the people of Zdaim and Amayra. So he opened up his mouth to give this, to say this, and then Maya Hadalei, what does the Eibishter answer him afterwards? Shimu Dvar Hashem Ktsine Zdaim. Listen to the Eibishter, the princes of Zdaim. So the Eibishter Taka refers to them as Zdaim. So you're not allowed to open your mouth in the negative. The Gemara continues weiter. This is all by the Nicham Avelim. So Reish Lakish tells his interpreter, Amalei kum eim milsa keneged menachmi Avelim. Get up and say a bracha for those that came to console the Avelim. Pasach v'amase began and said, Acheinu goim lechsadim, our brothers that do kindness, b'nei goim lechsadim, amachzikim bebrisa shel Avram Avinu, going in the ways of Avram Avinu. Shenema ki yidaitiv l'mana sheyitzave es bana v'goimer, Acheinu balag gmul yishalem l'chal gmulchem. The Eibusha will pay you for all the good you do. And baruch atah mishalem hagmul. Final bracha, Amalei, Kum, Eime Milsa. He told the Meturgaman, come say a bracha, Keneged, Kol Yisrael, for all Yidden. Pasach v'amas, so he said the following bracha, Ribunay Lamim, Pedei v'hatzala malit, come and save and redeem the Yidden. Hoisham Yisrael, deliver the Yidden, min adever, min acherev, min abizam, min ashidofim, min ayirakin, min kol mini piranias, plagues and all different kinds of hurricanes and things that can harm Yidden. HaMisrakshis u'bois lo'ilam, terem nikra v'ata sana. The Eibusha will answer even before we call out to him. Baruch atah oitzer amagefa. The Eibusha should hold back of any plague. So these are the brachas that they would say, and that's what the Gemara was speaking about before. When they said these brachas, they would say it in the presence of a minyan, and the oval is not part of the minyan. The Rishonim point out the obvious, which is that today the minig is not to say any of these brachas. Even then, when they said it, there was only a minig. And as we see here, he told his Meturgaman to say the bracha. It wasn't like a set nusach, a set minig. And today the minig is that we don't say any of these brachas. Amarole, v'amri lab masnita tana. We learned in the Braise. Asara kaises tikna chachamim bebeis ha'aval. There are 10 cups of wine that chachamim instituted that you should drink in the house of an aval. Shleisha kaidem achila, 3 they drink before they eat, kedei lefteich es b'nei meyav, to open up their appetite. Shleisha b'seich achila, 3 during the meal, kedei lishtres achila sheb'meyav, in order to help the digestion. V'arba la'achar achila, and then they drank another 4 cups of wine after they finished eating. Which is echad keneged hazan, 1 bracha. When they said the bracha of hazan, they drank a cup of wine, and then ve'echad keneged birchas haaretz. Then they said the bracha of noida, which talks about the land of Eretz Yisrael, and then they drank another cup of wine. And ve'echad keneged b'nei Yerushalayim. Then by the 3rd bracha, by the bracha of b'nei Yerushalayim, they drank another cup of wine. And then ve'echad keneged a toiva meitiv. And then the 4th bracha by a toiva meitiv, they drank yet another cup of wine.
Like
so they're drinking,
It's almost like Pesach.
They're drinking 10 cups of wine there, so here it's 10 altogether. And then it says, Haisifu aleim arba, then they added to drink yet another 4 cups of wine. Echad keneged chazani yair, they said a special bracha to praise the chazani yair, refers to the servants of the city, that they're the ones that take care of all the matters in the city, and they also had a hand in the burial to take care of the burial there. Vechad keneged parnasi yair, also one bracha for those rich people in the city that support people in the city. Vechad keneged beis hamikdash, another bracha is to ask the Eibishter to bring us the Beis HaMikdash back. Ve'echad keneged Rabbi Gamliel. Then there was another bracha they said for the honor of Rabbi Gamliel, which the Gemara will explain in a moment. What's this connection of Rabbi Gamliel over here? But the Gemara now says about all of this, Hischilu hayu shaisun mishachren. So they're drinking in all 14 glasses of wine. So they were drinking so much in the house of an oval, and people became drunk. So echziru adavar liyashna. So they took back and they brought the meaning to the way it was, only 10 cups of wine and not 14 cups, so people shouldn't get drunk. So again, this is a meaning that we don't do today, apparently because of what the Gemara says here. Drinking all this wine, you get drunk, it's not going to work. Oh. Okay, so my Rabbi Gamliel, what does it say that they drank a special cup of wine by the Nicham Avelim for the honor of Rabbi Gamliel? Why does he deserve to be mentioned in every Nicham Avelim, even after he passed away? So the Gemara brings the Tanya, we learned in Abraisa, B'rishayna, Haisa, Itzas, Ameis, Kashal, Ekreivav, Yaisim, Mimisasa. In the beginning, burying a dead was more difficult for the people, that their relatives that had to bury him. It was more difficult for them than the very fact that he passed away, because it was so expensive. They had to prepare things for him in the Levi and everything, so it was very difficult for them. And the people became so desperate that they left their relative that passed away and they ran away and they didn't bury him. Rabbi Gamliel came and he, regarding his own, when he passed away, so he was nigh with himself, kalos, that they should bury him the simplest burial possible. And they buried him with the shrouds. The tachrichim he wore was a simple kli pishton, linen based, simple. It shouldn't be something expensive that Rashi says they would use. Before this, they would use silk and the most expensive garments. And then after him, the minig became to use this kli pishton. So Rabbi Gamliel was always praised and remembered that he saved people, that they should be able to afford the burial. Rav Papa said, and now the minig is to use for the tachrichim, even this rough material that's very cheap, is just 1 zuz, in order not to make it difficult for people that have to do a levaya. Finish off with only good and happy and joyous things.
What they said about the lotion of honor